Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today's video we're going to be talking about my top 10 picks for kind of like easy great questing champions. Now to get first things kind of like straight up, the conditions for this is mainly the ability to access a lot of damage really early in the fight, not needing to rely on some sort of ramp up or difficult kind of like in-fight process to amplify your damage. We're looking at champions that basically can hit hard from the first hit of the fight or close to it, and can finish off your opponents extremely quickly. These are not necessarily the champions that are going to be the best ones when it comes to dealing with endgame content, such as like Act 6 or variants or stuff like that. These are the champions that do best kind of your day-to-day grind whenever you grind out your catalysts, do your uncollected or master modes, or whatever else kind of questing you do. These are the champions you want to kind of simply take in the quest, either to have the most amount of fun or just to kind of finish these quests as quick as possible, therefore saving you time. So once again, the main criteria here is not necessarily the overall quality of the champion or the overall damage output. The biggest kind of deciding factor here was how quickly and how reliably you can access the damage these champions can provide you with. And so we're going to start off in spot number 10. We have Archangel. Now, Archangel obviously has his major problem: immune champions, right? If you're up against an immune character, Archangel is not a good option to take into the fight, because that fight will take a long time. However, all the fights where Archangel does work, he is in fact one of the quickest killers in the game. Typically, you just want to drop a couple of heavy attacks, heavy parry, and like your fights are normally over like and couple heavies and parries. It doesn't take long at all. Plus all the damage ability, accuracy reduction, heal block are really useful qualities as well to quite often kind of like bypass the matchups that otherwise would be tricky. Let's say if you face a random Spider-Man, not that killing Spider-Man is all that big of an issue these days, it just makes it so much easier, where to the point where you don't have to focus too much on a game. You just drop your heavies basically and watch the spider bleed out. And yeah, that's it. That's why Archangel does make the list. He does not make it any higher in the list just because he has far too many matchups that he does not work. So that also basically means that when you take in Archangel as your main quest clearer, you definitely need to have somebody else ready and standby that does not rely on bleed or poison damage to finish off these quests quickly. But other than that, fantastic champion, great damage output, very quickly accesses that, super easy to use. Archangel, fantastic. Now we can move on to spot number 9, and spot number 9 we do have this time, where are my classes? We're going for Venom. Now Venom is not the highest damage dealing champion in the game. However, he does start off with quite good base, especially if he's awakened with these buffs, and especially if there are any crit or fury buffs. Plus that bleed can apply instantly, especially if you add some crit node synergies, plus he has synergy with himself that increases his damage output. But basically what I'm trying to say is he's not the highest damage dealing champion, but he's doing quite alright in damage department, but the fact that yeah, all of his hits can inflict bleed and he can do it fairly reliably, plus those buffs will come every few seconds and you're going to be doing more and more damage. Now there are more champions that I could add in this list if you kind of like count for good damage with bleeds or some other damage over time effects. Like Gwenpool, for instance, is also a great questing champion, but I did not want to kind of like get too much in all of these damage over time champions, because I do consider that to be a minus and a drawback. Therefore I'm just using Venom to kind of like symbolize a champion that hits hard from get-go, has good damage over time, is great to use in quests like many other champions, for instance Gwenpool, but I'm not going to be looking into all of them. This also list will kind of look at how often you are able to push out your damage and how easily, and unfortunately damage over time effects quite often can get hindered by immune champions, therefore they're not kind of really suitable to be brought in by themselves. Only you also need basically a second option that does not rely on, let's say, bleed or poison or whatever. But yeah, about that. So next we're gonna move on to Nightcrawler. Now where's my Nightcrawler? Has to be somewhere. There we go. Nightcrawler is also a fantastic questing champion. He might not be the most versatile champion. In fact, damage is more or less kind of like the only thing he has going for him. and again, he does not have the highest damage output. However, combined with Havoc synergy, he accesses his max damage potential immediately from the first hit combo of the fight, and that damage is definitely respectable, and it's definitely really easily acquired, and you're gonna be going through your opponents like basically that big sword goes through butter, and yeah, you're gonna be just plowing them down. Once again, he's not the most versatile character. I'm not saying that Nightcrawler is somebody you should consider taking rank 5 for questing, he's kind of like ease, but he is a great fun. He's a great option to take in when your kind of like main damage dealing champions are in Alliance War, Alliance Quest, whatever else have you, or if you just want to have a bit of fun. But do remember that he does kind of rely and need that Havoc synergy to dish out that respectable amount of damage easier. Otherwise, if you're going to want to try and switch stances with him every fight, it's just going to take long, and it's just going to completely change the entire process. With Havoc synergy, you start the fight, you hit the opponent, you hit as hard as you possibly can hit within like first combo or two, and you're done, and you move on. You don't need to worry about switching your stances or anything of the sort. So yeah, Nightcrawler, definitely a fantastic questing option in my opinion, and also a fast one, which is what this list is for. Now let's move on to spot number 7. Now in spot number 7 I have 2 different champions, and that now first of all is going to be Stark Enhanced Spider-Man. Now Stark Enhanced Spider-Man has a great damage output on his base as well. However, the whole poise building thing is counterproductive when it comes to you trying to get through the quest super quickly. Luckily, there comes the Blade synergy that gives you 3 poise charges. It basically makes you hit harder from the beginning, gives you bigger crit rate, and you're able to mince through a lot of smaller kind of shorter fights relatively quickly. Now they are higher on the list than, let's say, Venom or Archangel here, just because they also do not rely on kind of any immunities. They're fairly versatile champions with great damage output, and you can get through these fights quickly and easily, provided in this case if you have Blade synergy. I would not put this champion on the list if you do not have the Blade synergy, because once again, you do not want to be performing your dashback dexterity shenanigans every time you enter a random quest fight just to finish the fight quicker, especially if those are not kind of like serious or long fights. It just unnecessarily would extend it. However, starting with 3 poise charges gives you a great boost to your damage and typically lasts kind of like long enough for you to finish this fight, so there definitely is that. And kind of like similar but reverse idea goes for Stealth Suit Spider-Man. Now I don't have the most experience with Stealth Suit Spider-Man, however I have used him for a bit when it comes to like my 3-star Master Mode clears and stuff like that. Now he's also another champion that can access his damage quite easily within like a couple of combos. He unlocks his precision, his fury, he hits insanely hard, crits much more often than not. However, you do all that with your web cartridge charges, and if you can't finish the fight within your 5 web cartridge charges, then you're gonna have to shoot your level 3, and then it changes into kind of like completely different process. But when it comes to kind of like these easy casual fights, he definitely is a worthwhile option. Good kind of like base damage, high crit rate, and yeah, basically you can access it quite quickly, and therefore they do make the list on the spot number 7. Now one spot above Spiders is going to be, where is that guy? The one, the only, the legendary Blade. Now Blade is another champion that kind of does borrow from different champion elements, but that does make for extremely kind of easy and smooth questing experience. The fact that your parries do damage and also help you gain power by placing bleeds on opponent is fantastic, which means you can get to your like level 2 quick enough to finish off this fight, like, because level 2 does have increased crit rate, does have great damage output. You can access it easily just by kind of like dropping few parries, plus hitting your normal combos. You have increased power gain, so you technically get to your level 2 much faster than pretty much any other champion in the game does, aside from like maybe a few more, like Hyperion or whatever. And yeah, and there's always the bleed, which is great. Now without Danger Sense, his damage output technically is not the greatest. However, his level 2 does have great burst of damage built in that, plus while you're shooting your level 2, you're going to be getting back more power, so you're going to be quickly getting up to another level 2. And Danger Sense, obviously with Danger Sense, Blade damage output goes up by a lot, and quite few champions are kind of like subjected to danger sense, and therefore, yeah, Blade is still one of the kind of like easy, good options to bring in any random quest and just try and mince through them as quickly as possible. Very versatile champion, usable in many different situations, and will make your life quite easy when you go in a quest and try and complete it. And next champion we're going to be taking a look at is going to be Omega Red. Now, Omega Red, I was thinking quite a bit how highly or low to place him, because technically his like base stats and immediate damage isn't as high. However, if you're running Suicides and like Sabertooth synergy, his spores ramp up so massively quick that basically you just want to land in one heavy attack, and then you literally don't care what happens. In like these easy kind of fights, you can just try and intercept, you can get hit. They're still gonna die while they're hitting you in like some sort of master mode quest. But Omega Red does rely on Suicide Mastery, so that's definitely also a drawback there. He is highly dependent on Suicide Masteries to access this high damage so early on. And there is that, but on the bright side, there's pretty much no one and nothing that's immune to that spore damage. That means he's going to be extremely versatile to pretty much all of the matchups, maybe aside from robots, those still are kind of the pain. But Omega Red is one of those champions you can take in a quest and you can blitz through it relatively quickly without needing to rely on any other champions, because he's going to be working pretty much on everyone. Plus he has some really cool synergies that increase his damage output with like either Void or Wolverine plus Sabertooth and stuff like that. So there's a lot there to be abused by you simply kind of casually jumping in a quest and trying to get through it as quickly as possible. And I have definitely had my fair amount of fun. And Omega's damage output might not kind of like come immediately from the first hit of the fight, but definitely by the time you're launching your second combo, you will be doing insane amount of damage over time. And how insane it is the fact that he sometimes makes many Act 6 fights seem kind of like face roll. Start the fight, drop a heavy attack, attack them, and they're gonna be dead pretty much by the time your double-edge bleed expires. So he has kind of like maybe higher cap when he can finish the fights quickly, but lower kind of like base stat. So do keep that in mind, but he's definitely a fantastic option. And now we're gonna move on to the next champion, and next champion is Domino. Now, Domino and Red Hulk and Massacre synergy, parry, heavy, everybody knows that. Especially if you crit, you deal insane amount of damage. Opponents go down super quick. Normally, like many of the nodes, don't even become relevant. Also, incinerates. Not too many champions are immune to incinerate damage, and even if they are, you can just do your regular combos and rely to bleed. So she's quite like versatile champion. Also with the Massacre synergy, you can do like 8-hit combos or maybe even 9-hit combos on general quests, because you parry, do medium, do light, medium, and start up another combo, because that stun time is so long. So she works extremely well under many different conditions, with her incinerates, with her bleeds. Makes a lot of quests completely kind of like joke, and most importantly, joke that's over very quickly, because her damage output can be insane. Now, her damage output does somewhat rely on RNG, how your crits work, whether your bleeds trigger, whether your bleeds are critical bleeds or not. But typically, for like most part, you do have a fairly high chance to be finishing these fights out extremely quickly. And now we're going to go to my personal questing top 3. I know first champion, not everybody might agree to, but it's Wasp. Now, especially Wasp, if you have like Suicide Masteries and Havoc synergy, then it's insanely good. And what makes Wasp so great for the casual questing is just the fact that she has guaranteed hits. Both of her heavy attack hits are guaranteed to be critical. And for these kind of like quick quests where it's like in master mode or much of that collected, that's pretty much enough to kill the opponent. 1-2 carries and it's done. And what the best bit is, it's guaranteed. Another great bit is that stun that she places is passive, so there's pretty much nobody immune to that stuff. Another thing, that because she does not rely on any damage over time, she does that to pretty much everybody. So the fight typically goes, you parry, you might do 1-2 hits, go into heavy attack, opponents on the floor. If they're not dead, you just try and catch them while they're getting up. If you do, you drop another heavy attack. The fights go insanely quickly, and yeah, the reason why I place her as high on the list is it's just because she does it to pretty much everybody. She does not rely on any kind of like RNG or damage over time whatsoever. This is guaranteed damage, kind of like, and yeah, it doesn't matter who you're facing, the damage will be there. And yeah, she's fantastic questing option, by far one of my favorite champions to bring in when I just casually need to clear something. She does that stuff quickly, especially if you're running Suicide Masteries and have Havoc with you. And next champion goes on to be the second kind of like best easy questing champion. Arguably, she might even be the top one. Now, I might kind of like change my opinion. I'm really kind of undecided because these two champions are like neck and neck. They're head and shoulders above others. And it's Ghost. Now, Ghost, once again, her first hit basically the fight, if she's duped, is always guaranteed to be critical, which is enough to take down a lot of opponents. Also, the fact that she can find openings without needing to parry typically makes the fight seem effortless. So basically start the fight, opponent tries to hit you, you hit them, you dash back, you make sure your next hit again is critical, then they try and hit you and you hit them again. When you're running like Legends run, that strength of that critical hit is pretty much enough to knock out most of your opponents in like Heroic, and then Master mode you might need 2 or 3 hits or something like that. But base idea is she does deal with all of these champions extremely quickly, extremely easily, don't need to parry. Great obviously with Suicide Masteries, kind of preferred with Suicide Masteries like most of the champions here actually. Well, at least on the top. And yeah, she's fantastic basic kind of day-to-day questing champ, especially if you are comfortable using Ghost, because then you're gonna definitely think it seems absolutely effortless, takes no time at all. You don't never really get to even a special attack, or then again, if you're fighting against some relatively bigger opponents or maybe don't have suicides, then getting to your special attacks also is quite easy, especially if your Ghost is duped. She gains extra power every time you face a hit, so that kind of helps you to finish off the fights should the fights last a bit longer than a couple of hits. But top champion for all questing purposes pretty much, still GOAT, is Corvus. Just the simple sheer fact that all of his hits are guaranteed, and typically over an average quest fight you'll pick up a charge or 2, and that's still gonna further increase your damage, but that's not even the point. Even without any charges, you're running suicide and stuff, it's guaranteed to be a quick fight, it's guaranteed to be a quick quest. There is a good reason why this man, for instance, is the fastest Legends runner. Speaking of my top 10 list, I think pretty much every single one of these top champions could potentially land you Legends title in monthly quest if you boost and do full suicides and all that shebang. But Corvus, as we all know, is pretty much head and shoulders above everybody else when it comes to the Legends aspect of the game. He finishes all of these quests good solid 5-10 minutes faster than Ghost, and those two finish good solid 10-15 minutes faster than the closest competitors. So that is how huge of the gap kind of is. Corvus is just insane when it comes to general questing, simply and quickly finishing off these fights. Once again, you do not rely on any damage or time effects, you do not rely on any RNG, whether something is gonna proc or not. You know those critical hits are gonna be there, and you know you will get your opponents down insanely fast. That's kind of like Corvus' trademark. You, at the worst case, you're gonna finish them by the time you get your level 2, because all of that will be critical. And yeah, it's just extremely easy to use Corvus, simple. You don't have to put any kind of thought in it. It's just a basic gameplay. Parry, hit opponent, don't get hit. There are no tricks, no shenanigans. You don't rely on anything kind of specific. And that pretty much makes Corvus the best casual questing champion in my game. Huge damage from get-go, no reliance on any RNG, no reliance on any immunities or damage or time effects. Guaranteed damage then and there, starting the first hit of the fight till it finishes. And that pretty much will do for today's video. I think that is what I think who are the top kind of questing champions. Before I finish though, I nearly forgot there is another obviously bunch of champions that are great fun or could potentially mark in their list, but there were some things I wasn't entirely satisfied about. For instance, Sunspot. Sunspot deals insane amount of burst damage. He can finish a lot of fights incredibly quickly, but just the simple fact that you are required to kind of like think and follow up, and the fight is not as straightforward because you need to land like a level 1, get your level 2 again, and you do that by dropping heavies, charging the heavy attacks, checking opponent's stun timer, how long you can charge, stuff like that. Sunspot can finish a lot of fights insanely quickly, especially these kind of uphill fights where you do have to take away quite a lot of opponent's HP. But it does take a bit of effort, a bit of mental kind of like thought process. It's not as effortless as the champions on this list, because that was one of the things I kind of wanted to make sure, the user friendliness, how easy it is to use these champions in order to clear the content. So Sunspot unfortunately falls in that category, kind of like Massacre as well. Massacre is extremely fun champion with great damage output as soon as you light up the bat. Lighting up the bat can be tricky at times. It's, for instance, I'm not too worried whether I will or will not be able to light up the bat when I play Massacre, just because I have done it for a while and I'm used to it. But it still requires for you to kind of like focus, know when and how to get in opponent's block, when and how to push. And then as soon as you can lit the bat up, obviously everything's fantastic. If you had some sort of synergy that lets you start a fight with the bat and ignite it, that would be perfect. He would be such a great questing champion with amazing damage output. Now there's OG Tor. OG Tor is also an amazing questing champion with his stun loops, locks, because you just parry, place a couple of armor breaks on opponent, hit opponents fast, and they go down. He's incredible. I still think he's an incredible champion when it comes to kind of like casually questing, but since he's one of the older champions, I don't think too many people have him. Also, I haven't really tested and practiced with him as a 5-star, therefore I couldn't say that for sure, or at least I haven't tested it out as much. Therefore he's not in this list. Now Red Hulk is another straightforward champion that ramps up insanely quickly, that's easy to use, that probably would make it close to the top 10, but unfortunately, unless you're fighting like Mystic on energy damage champions, you do need to throw several kind of level 1s to increase your damage output. But still, he's great, he's fun, he's easy to use, he does a lot of damage, and he doesn't rely on any kind of like buffs and stuff like that. Then we definitely have to talk about Carnage. Now Carnage is the most fun I'm having in Marvel Contest of Champions. Like for me personally, when I'm taking in like my rank 3 Carnage in Uncollected, I'm just having fun. It's just so incredibly fun to play. Unfortunately, he's a ramp-up character and he masses hit counts insanely quickly. Now, he does finish the fights in a reasonable speed, but he's still a ramp-up champion. He does not have all that access to his damage incredibly fast. Now, the power gain, the bleeds, all the stuff, it's really cool. It's fun. Definitely recommend you guys checking out Carnage and quests and just kind of like goofing off for yourself a bit. But he's a ramp-up champion. He finishes fights fast, but it's not like kind of a qualifier that would land him in here, because by default he is in fact a ramp up champion. And then we have Ronin, which is great fun, but his damage output even ramped up is not, I think, quite at the level of the top champions in here. And also there is this ramp up changing stances. It's an extremely interesting way to play the game, especially now and then. Maybe if you don't have to do it for many hours from get-go, if you just take him in for like a quest or two, he's a fun champion. It's interesting, damage is good, does require a bit of practice, so he's kind of like the same thing as Massacre's bat. Like if you didn't have to change your stances 6 times or 7 times before you kind of like get into your max damage mode, he'd be great addition to this list, but unfortunately you do, and that is not the most kind of like straight up easy thing to do, and it does take time. But yeah, anyways, so those were kind of like my honorable mentions. I'm sure there are plenty others. I'm sure there are going to be some champions somebody's going to message that I simply forgot about, or there are going to be champions I simply didn't want to put in this list because of a reason or another, under my discretion. Therefore, do remember, this is my list, this is my opinion. But with that, I will be done for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya!